My wife lied to me. She told me she got a job in the second city of Equatorial Guinea, a place called Bata. She said it was a big opportunity and that she would be gone for a while. I believed her. I trusted her with everything. We packed her bags together. She kissed me goodbye and said she would call me often and send for me when she was settled. I felt proud of her. I thought she was doing this for us to make our lives better. At first, she called me every other day. She talked about her job, her small apartment, and how she lived alone. But she never showed her face on video. She always had some excuse: the internet was bad, her camera was broken, or she was too tired. After a few weeks, the calls became less. She didn't text much anymore. When she did talk to me, she always seemed busy or distracted, like someone else was in the room. Then, one night, a friend of mine from Malabo, the capital city, called me. He said, "I saw your wife near Baltasar's apartments. She wasn't alone. She was with a man. They looked like a couple." I was confused. My wife told me she was in Bata, not Malabo, and Baltasar's apartments. Everyone knows about that place. It's expensive, quiet, and private. Rich men live there. Politicians, businessmen, and sometimes women who don't want people to know where they are. I couldn't believe it. But something inside me said I had to find out the truth. I told work I needed a few days off and pretended I was going to Bata. But I went to Malabo instead. I stayed at a small hotel close to Baltasar's apartments. I watched the building from far away, and after 3 days, I saw her. She came out holding hands with a tall man. He was well-dressed, rich-looking, and confident. She was smiling, laughing. He touched her like they were together, like they were in love. I followed them to a cafe nearby. They sat close. He kissed her hand. She didn't stop him. She didn't look scared. She looked happy. That's when I knew the truth. She didn't go to Bata. She never had a job there. She had been living with this man, pretending to be his wife, while lying to me. The man was Baltasar, the owner of the apartments. He wasn't just anyone. He had power, money, and my wife. I waited for her the next morning. When she came out, I stepped in front of her. "Thought you lived in Bata," I said. She froze. Her face went white. She couldn't speak at first. Then she said, "Please, let me explain." But I didn't want excuses. I had already seen everything. Later, she told me the truth. She met Baltasar before she left. He promised her money, safety, and a better life. She chose him. Not because she had to, but because she wanted more than I could give her. She said she still loved me, but I knew it was a lie. She was never planning to come back. Now, it's been a year. People ask me if I still miss her. I say no. But sometimes, late at night, I remember the way she looked when she said goodbye. I remember how easily she lied. My wife left me for another man. But in the end, I'm glad I found out the truth. Because living with a lie is worse than living alone. And I would rather be alone than be loved by someone who hides in another man's apartment. After everything came out, after I saw her with Baltasar and called her out in front of those fancy apartments, she didn't run. She stood there, shocked, her eyes wide and scared. Maybe she thought I would shout. Maybe she thought I would cry. But I did nothing. I just stood there, broken inside. She asked me to meet her later, somewhere private. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met in a small park behind a church. There weren't many people around. She sat on a bench. I stood for a while, arms crossed, waiting to hear the truth. She didn't speak for a minute. Then she said something that hurt more than I expected. "I never wanted to hurt you." I laughed a little. Not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. "You didn't want to hurt me, but you left me for another man. Lied to me for months. Played me like a fool." She looked down at her hands. No wedding ring. I noticed it right away. I didn't plan it, she said softly. It just happened. I sat beside her. I didn't say anything. I let her talk. She told me everything. She met Baltasar at a business conference 2 months before she left. She wasn't even supposed to go, her boss sent her last minute. Baltasar gave a speech there, all about wealth, success, and leadership. After the event, he noticed her standing alone, looking at the ocean from the hotel balcony. He walked up to her, smooth, calm, confident. He asked me what I wanted in life, she said. Not just what I had, what I wanted. I stared at her. And what did you say? I said I wanted freedom. Stability. A life where I didn't have to worry about every little bill. I said I was tired of struggling. She looked at me then, right in the eyes, and he told me he could give me all of that. I shook my head. So, you left me for money? No, she said quickly. It wasn't just money. It was everything. The life. The comfort. The way he made me feel. He made me feel special. Like I mattered. That cut deep. I had spent years trying to make her feel loved. I gave her everything I had even when it wasn't much. But I guess it wasn't enough, she kept talking. Do you remember when our power got cut off for 3 days? When we ate noodles for dinner 4 nights in a row? I didn't complain, but it broke something inside me. I got tired of pretending that everything was okay. She was crying now. Quiet tears running down her cheeks. But I didn't comfort her. I thought maybe I could go with him for a few months, she said. Get some money, help us out. But then things got deeper. We got closer. And after a while, I stopped thinking about coming back. I asked her the question that had been burning in me since I saw them together, did you love him? She hesitated. Then nodded. At first, I didn't. He was just exciting. Different. But over time, yes. I think I did. I think I still do. That was the moment something inside me finally broke for good. I asked her one last question, why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? She wiped her tears and said something I'll never forget. Because I didn't want to see the look you're giving me right now. The look that says I was never enough for you either. I knew you'd never forgive me. So I lied. I thought lies would hurt less. But lies don't hurt less. They grow. They twist around your heart. They poison everything. In the end, she chose a life where she didn't have to fight for every little thing. She chose comfort, money, power over love, over honesty, over me. She stood up and said, I'm sorry. Then she walked away. Back to him, back to the life she chose. I sat there a long time after she left. And for the first time, I let myself feel it all, the pain, the betrayal, the loss. It wasn't just about her cheating. It was about everything we had built falling apart. A house of dreams turned into dust because I never saw the cracks in her heart. She didn't do it just because she wanted more money. She did it because she wanted a different life, one that didn't include me. And now, all I have left are the memories of a woman I used to know. A woman who smiled at me while planning to leave. A woman who promised forever and meant only a few more months. But I survived. And I'm healing. And one day, I'll find someone who chooses me not just for today, not just until something better comes along, but for real. The truth I never wanted to hear. I didn't want to know the details. At first, I thought it would be better to forget, to walk away, block her number, delete the memories. But my mind wouldn't let me. The more I tried not to think about it, the more I imagined it. I imagined what it was like for her. The days, the nights, the clothes, the lies. The way he looked at her. The way she let him. So I asked her. A week after we last met, I called her again. I told her I needed answers. Not for revenge. Not to punish her. Just to make peace with it. She hesitated but agreed to meet. Maybe she felt guilty. Or maybe she just wanted to explain now that it was too late. We met at the same park bench. This time, she brought her journal, a small leather notebook she always kept when we were together. That notebook had once held shopping lists, to-do lists, and birthday reminders. Now it held secrets. She opened it and said, "I'll tell you everything. But once I do, we are done." No more questions after this, I nodded. She took a breath. "I was with him for 123 days. She said it so calmly, like she had counted everyone. "I moved into his apartment the same day I left you. I never went to Bata." That was the first lie. My chest tightened. 123 days. 4 months. 4 months of pretending she was at work. 4 months of telling me I miss you while lying in someone else's arms. I lived in apartment 7D. Top floor. The one with the private balcony and glass ceiling, she said. Baltasar had given her the whole apartment. It was big, modern, and full of expensive things. Designer furniture. Smart mirrors. A walk-in closet larger than our old bedroom. The first night I arrived, he gave me a dress, she said. A white dress from Paris. From a brand I'd only seen in fashion magazines, Dior. She showed me a photo on her phone. It wasn't just a dress. It was art. Smooth silk with silver threads at the waist. It cost more than our rent for a year. He said I looked like someone important. He said I deserved better than cheap clothes and broken shoes. Then came the shoes. Red heels. Louboutin. Real ones. She said they made her feel taller. Not just in height, in status. Confidence. He gave me jewelry too, she said, but only when I did what he liked. I asked, "What do you mean?" She looked away. "He likes to control everything," she said. What I wore. How I spoke. When I left the apartment. He bought me clothes for every part of the day: morning yoga outfits, brunch dresses, evening gowns, even lingerie. He picked every piece. She paused and looked down at the ground. Then she said something that made me cold inside. He had a GoPro. He used to record everything. I leaned forward. Everything. She nodded. Yes. Everything. He said it was for memories. But I think he just liked watching me. Us. Afterward. She said the camera was always on, hidden in corners, or strapped to his chest. At first, she didn't mind. She thought it was strange, but exciting. But after a while, she realized it was more than that. He was keeping those moments. Saving them. He used to kiss her slowly, dramatically, as if he knew someone would watch it later. He would hold her face in both hands, smile at her, then turn her head toward the camera. He used to whisper, "This moment is ours forever," right before he pressed record, she said. Every dinner they had was filmed. Every night together, recorded. Every laugh, every touch, it became content for his private collection. I felt sick. She kept talking. Said he gave her a diamond necklace one night after a trip to Sao Tome. Another time, he flew her to Abidjan just to buy perfume. Not from a store. From a woman who made it by hand, drop by drop. I asked him once why he spent so much money on me, she said. He said, "Because I like collecting beautiful things and you're the rarest one I found." I asked her, "Did you ever feel like his prisoner?" She looked surprised. "No," she said. "I felt like his queen." That hurt more than anything else. She said he had staff, a maid who cleaned, the cook who prepared her favorite meals, even a driver who waited for her like a shadow. She never had to lift a finger. Everything she wanted appeared within minutes. But even paradise has a price. He never said it, but I knew I couldn't leave him without losing everything. And by the time I wanted to leave, I didn't know how. I asked, "So why did you keep calling me all those weeks?" She looked away again. Because I wanted to believe I still had a way back. A way to pretend it wasn't real. I wanted to believe I could love him and still come home to you. That was the truth I never wanted to hear. She wanted both lives, the rich one and the real one. The diamonds and the devotion. She wanted Baltasar's luxury and my loyalty. But no heart can be split like that. Something has to break. And in the end, it was me. I stood up, said nothing, and walked away. She didn't follow. She just sat there, under the setting sun, with her fancy perfume and her expensive shell. They say time heals. But it doesn't delete. Even now, sometimes I dream of her standing on that glass balcony in her white Dior dress, looking out over Malabo like a goddess, while Baltasar films her with his GoPro. Like a trophy. Like a prize. But in the end, she wasn't his prize. And she wasn't mine either. She was just a woman who got lost in her own hunger for more, for better, for different. And I was just the man she left behind. Why Baltasar in Ganga wasn't satisfied with just one woman, how he ended up having over 200 including my wife, and how his position as the head of the National Financial Investigation Agency in Equatorial Guinea played into everything. It also explores what may have caused him to become the man he is. The man who wanted too much. After I walked away from my wife for the last time, I didn't just move on. I couldn't. Every night, I lay awake wondering who this man really was. Baltasar in Ganga, not just the man who stole my wife, but the man who lived like a king while the rest of us worked and prayed just to keep the lights on. I started asking around. Quietly. Carefully. Because asking about Baltasar in Malabo was like asking about a ghost who watches you as you speak his name. People got nervous. Eyes shifted. Voices dropped. But piece by piece, story by story, I began to understand. Baltasar in Ganga was no ordinary man. He was the head of the National Financial Investigation Agency, the one who controlled what money was watched, what accounts were frozen, and who got investigated in Equatorial Guinea. That meant he saw everyone's secrets, the bribes, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the hidden fortunes. And he didn't just look at the money, he learned how to move through it. Manipulate it. Own it. He was above the law. Maybe even more than that, he was the law. But what struck me most, what left me stunned and hollow inside, was what I discovered about his women. My wife wasn't the only one. Not the first, not the second, not even in the top 50. Baltasar had over 200 women. 200. Some stayed for a weekend. Some for a month. Some stayed until they couldn't remember who they were before he dressed them in silk and perfume. He didn't keep them all at once. No, he rotated them. Like ornaments. Like watches. Like luxury cars. I found out from someone who used to work in his private security team, a man named Marcos. He met me one night in a roadside bar far from town. His hand shook as he lifted his beer. I kept a list once, Marcos said. Just to track names. You know how many were on it when I left? How many? I asked. 207. He said it like a confession. Like it haunted him. Some were students. Some were singers. Some were married women, like my wife. Some had families who never knew where they went on weekends. Some thought they were the only one. They were not, so why? Why did a man with money, power, position, and influence need more? That question kept me up more than anything else. Why was one woman never enough for Baltasar? Marcos had his theory. You ever seen a boy who grew up hungry? He asked. Starving. Poor. Always watching others eat while he had nothing. I nodded. I had been that boy. Well, when that boy finally gets food, what does he do? He doesn't eat like a normal person. He gorges. He doesn't trust the food will be there tomorrow. So he eats like it's the last time. Even if his stomach hurts, he keeps eating. He paused and looked me dead in the eyes. Baltasar grew up like that, not with food, but with love. With attention. with power. Marcos told me that Baltasar came from a small, forgotten village near the Gabon border. His father had 3 wives and 13 children. Baltasar's mother was the least loved, the quiet one. Her children were treated like dirt. His father barely knew his name. As a boy, Baltasar would hide in the forest to cry, to scream, to punch trees with his small fists. The first time someone ever looked at him with respect was when he got a scholarship to study finance in Europe. He came back different. Taller, colder, smarter, and hungry. Hungry for everything he had never had: money, recognition, power. And women. He learned that money gave him attention. Power gave him fear. But women gave him the illusion of love. Every time he made a woman fall for him, it was like revenge against the world that ignored him. Every kiss, every moan, every "I love you" whispered in the dark. He didn't hear her voice. He heard the silence of his childhood being filled. But that kind of love doesn't heal. It just burns hotter. And soon, one woman wasn't enough. He needed a second. Then a third. Then 10. Then 50. And then 200. Every time he filled one space in his heart, another space opened. His wealth made it easy. He used government money, travel budgets, security housing, fake companies that funneled cash into buying apartments, jewelry, flights. No one questioned it because he was the one who investigated everyone else. He controlled the files. He decided which names got erased. Some say the president himself once asked Baltasar to stop his personal lifestyle from embarrassing the country. Baltasar just smiled and said, "You worry about your scandals. I'll handle mine." No one bothered him again. But not every woman left quietly. One tried to expose him. A journalist from Spain. She lived in apartment 4B for 3 months. She left suddenly, went back to Madrid, and published a story called The Shadows of Malabo. 2 weeks later, her apartment caught fire. No one could prove anything. But those of us who knew. Another woman disappeared entirely. A university student. Bright. Kind. Her parents filed a report, but it went nowhere. Because Baltasar's fingers were in every drawer, his eyes in every camera, his voice in every wire, and my wife, she wasn't special to him. She was just one more taste on his plate. One more dress to throw across a couch. One more laugh to record. One more face in his GoPro footage. I used to think I lost her to love. But now I know I lost her to hunger, not hers. She was swallowed by the kind of hunger that doesn't end, the kind that destroys everything in its path. When I finally let go of her, I realized something important. Baltasar didn't steal her because he loved her. He used her because he could. And that's the worst part of all. She didn't fall in love with a man. She fell into the trap of someone who didn't know how to love anyone, not even himself. Now, he still lives up there in Baltasar's apartments. Still watches the world through his dark sunglasses and tinted windows. Still records. Still collects. Maybe one day the system will catch up to him. But until then, I pray for every woman who walks through his doors, thinking she's entering a palace, not knowing she's stepping into a cage built out of power, pain, and one man's bottomless hunger. And I pray for myself to never fall for a lie like that again. If I had the power to punish Baltasar in Ganga, not just as the man who stole my wife, but as the monster who used power, wealth, and fear to control over 200 women like possessions, I wouldn't give him an easy ending. Death would be too fast. Prison too quiet. No, the kind of man Baltasar is, you can't punish him by taking away his freedom. You have to take away what he values most. So here is what I would do. And let me tell you, this would not be about revenge. It would be about justice. A deep, painful justice. The kind that teaches a man that you cannot break hearts, destroy families, and trap souls in silence without one day paying the price. Baltasar's power lives in secrecy. In his government position. In his files. in the shadows. So the first thing I would do is take that power away publicly. I would gather every document he has ever signed, every recorded phone call, every bank transfer, every fake company, every apartment lease, every gift sent to a woman under another name, and I would release it to the world. Not in whispers, not in secret. No on national television, on billboards, online. His name would no longer be a mystery whispered in fear. It would become a curse. People would walk past his face and spit. Children would be told, this is what happens to greedy men who forget how to love. He would lose his title, his office, his guards, his drivers. His authority would be taken from him like a stolen crown. He would no longer be feared, only pitied. The second step, face his women. One by one, he would sit in a chair. In a large, quiet hall. No guards. No cameras. No voice to speak over theirs. And every single woman, all 200 plus of them, would walk in, one at a time, not to hurt him. Not to scream. But to tell their story. He would sit and listen as each one said what he did to her. The lies he told. The promises he broke. The parts of themselves they lost because of him. The pain they carried in silence. The nights they cried. The families they betrayed. The shame they hid. The healing they had to fight for. He would hear the heartbreak in their voices. He would hear the anger in their silence, and he would not be allowed to interrupt. Not once. He would be forced to sit and listen until his ears rang with truth louder than the lies he used to charm them. Some would be strong. Some would be broken. Some would still be unsure of how to speak. But they would be heard. And he would be alone. Once the stories were told, I would take everything he owns, the cars, the gold watches, the ocean view apartments, the secret accounts, the fine suits, the hand-stitched leather shoes, the paintings he never even looked at, and I would sell them. But not for myself. Every cent would go into a fund, a restoration fund for the women. For the lives they paused. For the homes they lost. For the children they had to raise without stability. For the therapy they need. For the dreams they gave up because he said, stay with me. Let him watch as the very things he used to control others are used to rebuild the people he tried to break. Baltasar loves attention. He loves being watched. Being in control. His GoPro was his way of recording people, storing moments, owning memories. So for his punishment, I would give him the opposite. I would place him in a room with no cameras, no mirrors, no windows, no sound, a room with nothing but white walls and his own thoughts. No staff. No visitors. No attention. Just silence. The walls would be made of soundproof material. He could scream, cry, beg, but no one would hear. For years, women waited by the door for him. For his approval. For his next message. For his cold love. Now he would wait for someone to open that door. But no one would. He would live in the place he once sent others forgotten. When his punishment was nearly done, I would write a book, his story. Not the version he tells, not the successful leader, or the brilliant investigator, or the powerful man. But the true story. The one I lived. The one those women survived. The story of a man who grew up ignored, and instead of learning how to love, he learned how to possess. That book would be taught in schools. Not to shame him, but to teach others. To teach young men that power without kindness becomes cruelty. To teach girls that love should never feel like a trap. To remind the world that monsters don't always wear masks, sometimes they wear suits and smiles. Baltasar would see his legacy rewritten not in gold, but in truth. If one day he looked up and asked, why did this happen to me? I would answer him softly, because you thought you could treat people like things. And the world finally treated you the way you treated others, empty, used, then forgotten. That would be my punishment, not death. Not revenge, but the slow, heavy weight of truth. The loss of control. The fall from greatness. The sting of being forgotten by the world you once owned. And maybe, in that silence, he would feel what we all felt. And maybe, just maybe, he would learn what real love is. Too late, but still, at last.